Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, for the introduction. As Catherine mentioned, my name is Sarah Rotman Epps. I'm a senior analyst for Forrester Research based in San Francisco. You heard some Forrester data in the 4Info presentation this morning. That was something that some of my colleagues worked on. So I lead our practice in emerging technologies. And for the past 18 months, I've focused pretty much exclusively on wearable devices and more broadly, the Internet of Things. Now, wearable devices can take a lot of different shapes and forms, and we'll talk about what that means. One of the most hyped wearables today is Google Glass. And I thought I would start by sharing this picture with you of me trying on my Google Glass for fitting. I'm a glass explorer, although haven't been exploring as much as some of the explorers out there that are really doing an amazing job. But anyway, so this is this warehouse space that Google set up as a pop-up retail store in San Francisco. And I was working with the fitter to get the glass on. These are not Google Glass, these are just regular glasses I'm wearing today. And the reason why I love this photo is because it's a totally unguarded moment of delight that my colleague Fatima Katablu captured on her iPhone as I was trying these on. And the reason why I look so happy here is not because glass is so comfortable to wear, but because while the fitter was adjusting the glass and I was focusing on that, I got this unexpected call from my mom who lives in Boston, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and it worked. It came right over glass, and I was able to answer the phone with my voice and have a conversation with her. And it was just really exhilarating because it was this moment of something totally new I'd never experienced before on this new device. But I also love this photo because it really captures the last truly happy moment I had with Google Glass. How many of you have tried Glass? Okay, so quite a few. Is anyone wearing them today? No? I've had people record me in conferences using Glass. I have to tell you, the video quality is terrible. So what we're going to be talking about this morning is unpacking the hype and the reality that surrounds wearables, talking about where wearables are going next, and finally, what wearables mean for all of you, for marketers. So I live in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. You hear this statement all the time. Wearables are really mainstream now. I hear this from people who work at startups. I hear this from reporters. And I have to tell you, based on Forrester's research and data, this is a myth. And the reality is that wearables are still quite niche. So in our surveys show from 2013, it's about 6% of US online adults that are tracking their performance in a specific sport, 5% tracking their daily activity with a device like the Fitbit or the Jawbone Up or Nike Fuel Band, 5% using these types of devices to track their sleep quality, 3% using a device like the Lumobac to track posture. So to translate these percentages into numbers, this is low single-digit millions of people. And when you add them all up, we estimate globally probably around 30 million consumer wearables will ship in 2013. However, when we ask consumers about their willingness to wear a sensor device on their body, we see that consumers are actually pretty interested in this, and some are willing to do it quite invasively. So the path of least resistance, clipping something to your clothing, 29% of US online adults say they'd be willing to do that. That's a device like the regular Fitbit. 28% would wear something on their wrist. That would be like the Jawbone or the Nike Fuel Band. 18% would wear something clipped onto their shoe. 15% embedded in their actual clothing. So this would be something like the Ohm Signal shirt that they've been showing off recently. 12% embedded in jewelry. 12% embedded in earbuds or headphones. 12% as glasses, so this is like Google Glass. 10% on the upper arm, that's like a body media device, 6% around their chest, like the Under Armour chest strap, 4% in their contact lenses, and 3% actually tattooed on their skin. And if you think that this is crazy, I've actually met someone who has done this. His name is Tim Cannon. You can Google him or look on Twitter. His company is called Grindhouse Wetwear, and it's at GH Wetwear. And he's recently posted a video of his latest body hacking experience where he has, so far he has an RFID sensor right here between the webbing of his thumb and forefinger. He has a magnet on his ring finger, and he recently just put an LED light, a Wi-Fi, wireless charging, and 2 sensors behind a tattoo on his arm. So that's the future of wearables. So myth number 2, wearables are great for health tracking, but not much else. In reality, consumers are interested in varied sensor scenarios. And when we ask consumers, what would you be willing to wear, to use a sensor device for, one of the most popular scenarios is what Disney is already doing in Walt Disney World in Florida, piloting their Magic Bands, which is unlock your car or house so you don't have to carry keys. Cannibalize my keychain. Get media recommendations based on your mood. 30% of US online adults say they're interested in doing this. And this is actually available too. There's a company called Valencell that is partnered with iRiver to come up with the first sensor-embedded earbuds that can adjust your audio based on your heart rate. Track your child's activity, 29%. There's a new product out with AT&T called the Philippe Watch. It's a smartwatch for your kids where you can track their location and also you can use it to make phone calls. So when I answer the phone and it's a reporter, they're almost always currently asking about smartwatches right now. There's a lot of attention paid to this device. In our view, the reality of smartwatches is that overhyped. And I think of it as a sci-fi fantasy that we just have to play out to see where it goes. But smartwatches have really been around for more than a decade. Fossil has been doing Bluetooth watches for a long time. Sony's had products, Microsoft, and so on. Watches in general are a declining form factor. How many of you are wearing a watch today? So like some, but not everybody. And as you look demographically, younger people tend to wear watches less. Pebble, I think, really shows the flaws of associating Kickstarter success with broader appeal. I think as a general rule, if you see something doing really well on Kickstarter, you should be immediately skeptical. Because Kickstarter is not representative of the general mass market population, and often, if these products can even execute to get into broader retail environments, they hit a wall, because mass market consumers care about different things than the Kickstarter population. You'll get a demo later today, I understand, of the Samsung Galaxy Gear. Our view is that that product will really have few takers, and that's because the battery life is very limited, the price is too high, and it's just not delivering enough value yet to consumers. But with that said, a solid product from Apple could sell in the tens of millions. And in our data, we see that 17% of US online adults, and it's about the same in Europe, say they'd be interested in using a smartwatch. So where are these devices going wrong? You know, I'm a little skeptical of smartwatches, and that's because I've tested a lot of these products, and frequently, not just watches, but all of these wearable devices don't meet the basic criteria for usability, which is they have limited battery life. If you're getting less than 7 to 10 days of battery life in this market, it's a non-starter because consumers can't really form a habit with a device that they are always forgetting to charge. And also faulty hardware. The Jawbone Up, even in their second release of product, I've had several that just stop working. Nike FuelBand also has relatively high return rates because of faulty hardware. Chart fatigue. So often, if you've used any of these devices, you might notice you're really excited to see your data at first, and then it becomes boring. You kind of know if you had a good day or a bad day. So these devices need to get beyond that. Then, if they can make it up the ladder that far, they have to conquer something I think of as aesthetic inflexibility. So these devices either have to be so fashionable or so invisible that you really would wear them all the time. And finally, think back to Rishi's presentation, create something that consumers want, create something that consumers really need. These devices have a very high bar in being something totally new, something supply-side driven, that they haven't conquered that final level of the hierarchy of something that I absolutely just don't want to live without. But I do think we are going to solve these problems, and as we do, wearable adoption will grow. How much is quite disputed. This is a chart aggregated by Business Insider Intelligence. It doesn't matter if you can't read the numbers, because my point here is how far apart these lines are. They range from the tens of millions to the hundreds of millions, depending on which firm you're listening to. And at Forrester, we haven't done a formal forecast yet because we feel like it's still really too early to say. And depending on what Apple does, what Google does, it could move the bar substantially. So where will wearables go next? Well, we're going to see more form factors. This is a device created by a woman called Jennifer Darmore. She spoke at South by Southwest last year, and she'll be doing so again this year. And she's great if you haven't seen her. So it's a ring that is also a heart rate monitor, and it kind of plays off that mood ring. So the light glows different colors depending on how hard you're working, what your stress level is. She's also created prototypes for Pilates clothing that vibrates to correct your posture. And we think we'll see a huge range of devices. It won't just be one type of shape or size that wins over consumers. We'll see more use cases. So beyond health and fitness to identity validation, eventually payments, personal safety, insurance, productivity, media interaction, social networking, navigation, all the things that we use all of our other devices for today will come in some form to wearables. And more integration. This is a screenshot from the Jawbone Up app partners. So Jawbone has opened up its platform for third-party developers to go in and mash up their data, their service with Jawbone's activity and sleep tracking behavior. And interestingly, as you would expect, most of their app partners are in the complementary health and fitness space. So Wello, for example, is a video service where you can do a live session with a fitness teacher, like for yoga or Pilates, and they have created a mashup to be able to track your activity with that on your app. But there are also some not fitness-related applications like IFT, which is IFTTT, terrible name for an application, but it's basically an if-then type of app. So it's like building macros for your life. If I make my Jawbone goal, then book me an OpenTable reservation for someplace really decadent. I don't know. You can design your own scenario around this. So what does this mean for you? Well, for marketers, wearables, first of all, mean data. Some of these devices, like the Basis smartwatch or Body Media or Lark Life, they're generating thousands of data points per minute per person. And the types of data are extremely varied. It could be someone's heart rate. It could be galvanic skin response, how much they're sweating. So as you think about what wearables will mean for your organization, just do a health check. Just do a status check right now of thinking about, well, if you did have access to this type of data about your customers, what would you do with it? Do your systems, the other technology platforms that you use to run your marketing business, could they support this type of data? Do your people have the skills to make sense of it? The second thing wearables mean for marketers is intimacy. You are going to get a lot closer to your customers because these devices are going with consumers to places where marketers have never been before, including their bed. I mean, people are wearing these devices to track their sleep and other activities. They're going to the outdoors. They're going with them in moments where you've never been invited to before. And when you think about the opportunities that you can have to interact with your customer in this much more intimate way, it's really expanding the possibilities of what you can do. But with that intimacy comes responsibility. First of all, responsibility to deliver something useful. And second of all, to be responsible about how you interact with this data and how gingerly you treat that delicate trust you're establishing with your customer. Privacy is not an afterthought here. Privacy is a central tenet of what you have to plan for as you approach wearables and mobile more broadly. Because what we see in our research is that consumers do want to interact with brands on some wearables, we'll limit it to some, but they want utility. They want something useful. They don't want advertising, not just a message. And glass is a good example here. If you look at the tweets of what people imagine that they would do with glass or what they would want to do with glass, I pulled this one out. I like this one. If I had glass, my wife would see our bank account during shopping. And some people point out to me that they think this is kind of sexist. I'm not really seeing that, but what I see here is someone who wants to interact with a brand, their bank, but they want something useful. They want just-in-time information that they can use to inform a purchase. This would not be an appropriate moment to cross-sell a mortgage or some other financial product, auto insurance, like my bank is always selling me on its website. So what marketers should do now? Well, all of you in this room are getting a lot smarter by the minute, and especially if you check out Rishu's website afterwards, you'll continue your education. But you really want to be educating the rest of your colleagues as you go back to your companies, making sure that your teams are staying up to date on the latest trends, and especially the opportunities that you might have to partner with some of the startups and the innovators in this space. You want to experiment. You want to use this opportunity. This is not the time to invest tons of money and resources in building an application for some of these devices, but you want to wear them, you want to get used to them, and they're a perfect opportunity to do a hackathon or some limited resource investment in, for example, building an app for Google Glass. You can do that. Your team can do that. Most of the brands that I've talked to that have done it say they had one guy do it in a weekend. And you want to partner. So no brands that we have worked with do this alone. There are a lot of agencies that are developing expertise in this space. Some of them are local to Austin. Mutual Mobile is one. They partner with companies like PushStart to do the hardware stuff. Then there are national agencies, global agencies like RGA that worked on the Nike Fuel Band. And this is becoming a competency for digital agencies that you should really push for in your existing relationships. So we have a minute left for questions, and if we don't get to your questions, this is my contact information. Happy to follow up with you after the conference.
See one over here? I think we can probably just take Mark's question, and then we'll have to move on.
Thanks. Hi, Mark Silva from Kite. I actually have a double question.
Yeah.
Can you put a stake in the ground and actually take a guesstimate at the size of the market, maybe IoT and then wearables? I saw the potential, 44% with locks would say that's 100 million people or homes or 300 million people or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other, why Apple?
Yeah.
Why does Apple get tens of millions and Samsung doesn't?
Great questions. So stake in the ground, based on our supply side research, we think this year is around 30 million, 20 to 30 million. I'd say probably closer to 30. And I would say within a few years, we can get into, past 100 million. For context, tablets now have reached a third of the US population. Smartphones are more than 2/3. And it's taken tablets 3 years to get to that point. So I think with wearables, we'll see some similar or slightly slower adoption at first, but then once they take off, you'll have people buying multiple of these devices. Second, why Apple, not Samsung? Samsung is pursuing a spaghetti on the wall type of strategy, and I think you'll see that with the Gear, which is just because they can, they do. Apple is much more thoughtful in their product rollouts, and the thing about wearables is, once you're burned by one of these devices, like you invest a lot of money and then it doesn't work for you, it's really hard to win that consumer over. And Apple is already, you could think of them already as a leader in wearables because number one, they're a retail channel for a lot of these devices. Number two, they're the platform that most of these devices sync with first. And I think you could summarize my view, my stake in the ground, as what's the more conservative one? Bearish in the short term and bullish in the long term. Like wearables are the next area for growth in personal computing and mobility. But as you could see from my presentation, and hopefully one of your takeaways is there is a lot of hype, and we're not quite there yet. Samsung is feeding off that hype, and I don't think doing enough to push us toward a more sustainable product that people would actually buy. So, yep. All right.
Thank you so much, Sarah.